I let my brother move into our basement after his divorce. My wife said he was like family. Turns out, she meant that literally. One morning, I heard whispering in the laundry room. I waited. Listened. Heard her giggle. "We have to be more careful," my brother said. "He'll never see it coming." That night, I cut the power, turned on the basement camera feed, and projected it onto the living room wall while we had dinner. They both sat frozen. "I see it now," I said. "All of it. I let them keep the house. I took my dignity and the dog. I want to say I saw it coming. That there were signs. That I was too trusting, too soft. But the truth is, when my younger brother Danny called me crying over the phone, I didn't think twice. His marriage had fallen apart. His wife had kicked him out after she found out he was messaging some woman from his past. It sounded like it was more than messages, but I didn't push him for details. He sounded broken. I felt bad for him. So I told him to come stay in our basement. Just until he figured things out. Got a job. Found a place. Whatever he needed. I wanted to help. My wife, Rachel, acted like she was all for it. "He's like family," she said, smiling, her hand on my arm. "He is family," I replied. Didn't even think about the way she said it. That was my first mistake. We lived just outside of Salem, Oregon. Nice enough neighborhood. Quiet street. Our house isn't huge, but it's got a finished basement with a separate entrance. It worked out well. Danny could come and go without bothering us. At first, things were fine. Rachel made him feel welcome. Too welcome, maybe. She brought him dinner plates. Washed his clothes. Talked to him more than I expected. I chalked it up to kindness. But after a couple of weeks, things started to feel off. I'd come home and hear them laughing together in the kitchen. She'd be making dinner, and he'd be leaning on the counter, making her laugh at some dumb story from when we were kids. Stuff I hadn't even thought about in years. They had inside jokes. I'd walk in and feel like I was interrupting something. I couldn't put my finger on it at first, but the way they looked at each other sometimes, it was different. Too close. Then came the little changes. Rachel started sleeping in later. She said she was tired. She said she wasn't feeling well. She stopped wanting to go out with me on weekends. Said she had things to do around the house. Laundry. Cleaning. Organizing. But when I checked, things weren't getting done. The laundry was still in piles. Dishes in the sink. I asked her if everything was okay, and she snapped at me. Said I was being controlling. Said I was acting weird. So I backed off. I figured maybe I was overthinking. Maybe things were just weird because Danny was around and the house felt crowded. Maybe Rachel just needed space. But then one morning, everything changed. It was a Saturday. I'd taken Cooper, our dog, for a long walk around the neighborhood. When I came back in, I went to toss his leash in the laundry room. That's when I heard voices. Whispers. I stopped moving. Pressed my ear to the door. Rachel's voice. "We have to be more careful." Then Danny. "He'll never see it coming." Her giggle. Soft. Private. I didn't move. My hands were shaking. I didn't even breathe. I just stood there, listening to my whole world fall apart in real time. I didn't confront them. I didn't crash in and scream. I went outside, sat on the back porch, and tried to keep my head from spinning. That night, I installed a new camera. I told Rachel I was updating the security system. She barely looked up from her phone. I placed the camera in the basement, hidden behind a vent cover near the ceiling. Caught the whole room. I checked it every night. Reviewed the footage on my phone while sitting in bed next to her. What I saw made me sick. They weren't just hooking up. They were sneaking around behind my back like I was some clueless idiot. They kissed like teenagers. Whispered in each other's ears. Shared bottles of wine. Watched movies cuddled under a blanket, on my couch. He told her he loved her. She said it back. They talked about starting over. About how this wasn't what they planned, but maybe it was meant to be. She said I was too boring. Too safe. That I never made her feel alive. He laughed and said, he still has no idea. I wanted to vomit. But instead of confronting them right then, I decided I needed more. I needed to make sure they knew I knew. I wanted to look them in the eyes when everything crumbled around them. I wanted to watch their world crack open like they had done to mine. So I waited. 2 more days. 2 more days of pretending everything was fine. I kissed her. I nodded along to Danny's jokes. I asked if they wanted Chinese takeout for dinner. Then Friday night came. I made steak, potatoes, garlic bread, Rachel's favorite red wine. Danny came up around 6. He said, "Smells amazing, man." I smiled. Figured we could all have a nice dinner. We sat down at the table. Ate like it was a normal night. Rachel poured herself a second glass. Danny asked about the game on Sunday. I played along. Then I stood up. Said, "Hold on. Be right back." I walked to the breaker and flipped the main switch. Darkness. Rachel jumped. What happened? I turned on the projector I'd already set up, hooked it to my phone and aimed it right at the wall above the mantel. The basement footage played in full color. Them. Together. Last night. Rachel in her robe, sneaking downstairs. Danny pulling her in. Her climbing into his lap. His hand under her robe. They both froze. The only light was from the projector, washing them in blue and red shadows. I turned to them. "I see it now," I said. "All of it." Either of them spoke. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I picked up my duffel bag from behind the couch. Cooper came running over, tail wagging, waiting for me like he always did. I looked at both of them. "Keep the house," I said. "Keep each other. I'm keeping my dignity. And the dog." Then I opened the front door and walked out. I didn't go far that night. I drove to the old days in off I-5 and got a room. Cheap. Ugly wallpaper. A bed that smelled like cigarette smoke. But it was quiet. And it was mine. Cooper curled up on the foot of the bed like nothing had changed. I envied him. For a while, I just sat there, staring at the ceiling. No TV. No music. Just me and the thoughts pounding through my head. I didn't sleep. The next morning, my phone blew up. Missed calls. Rachel. Danny. Then Rachel again. Then a long text from her that made me want to crush the phone in my hand. "I'm sorry you found out like that. We never meant to hurt you." "Really? Like there's a way to cheat on someone that doesn't hurt them?" I didn't reply. I didn't say anything to either of them. I just checked out of the motel and called my buddy Rick. He lived across town, divorced himself a few years ago. Said I could crash in his spare room as long as I needed. The first few days were quiet. I took long walks with Cooper. Applied for a transfer at work. I couldn't stay in that house, not with them. Couldn't walk through the door every night like nothing happened. Then one afternoon, Rick walked in holding a piece of mail. "You've got something from your wife." It was a letter. Handwritten. That part almost got me. She said she was confused. Said Danny made her feel seen. Said it just happened and she couldn't stop it. That I had checked out of our marriage a long time ago. She ended it with, "We never wanted to hurt you. I hope one day you'll understand." I laughed out loud. Not because it was funny, because it was so full of crap I didn't know what else to do. I didn't respond to that letter either. A week later, I got another one. This time, it was official. She wanted to talk about the house, the bank, the bills, legal stuff. I met her at a Starbucks. Neutral ground. She looked tired. Or maybe guilty. I didn't ask. I let her talk. She said they were going to try to make it work. That maybe this was all meant to be. That we were growing in different directions. Danny didn't come. I don't know if he was too ashamed or just didn't care. She offered to buy me out of the house. Said her parents were helping. I stared at her for a full minute before I answered. No, I said. You keep it. You and him. You built that hellhole together. Live in it. She blinked. So, you're just walking away? From you? Yeah, I said. I walked away the second you decided my brother was more exciting. I got up and left her sitting there. Didn't touch my coffee. But it didn't stop there. A month later, I started getting calls from my mom. She said Danny had been acting strange. He wasn't returning her messages. Rachel wouldn't pick up either. Then she told me something that twisted the knife a little deeper. Apparently, Danny had been bragging to a friend of his about how he finally beat his big brother at something. Said it loud enough that word got back to our cousin. I shouldn't have cared. I was out. But damn, that one stung. So I made a few calls. Quiet ones. To some folks Danny used to work with. To his ex-wife, too. She hated him, but she always liked me. She was the one who told me something I wasn't ready for. Rachel was messaging him before the divorce. She said, "Your wife." Back when we were still married. I didn't say anything. Just thanked her and hung up. But now I knew. This wasn't just a recent thing. This had been going on while we were still married. While he was still married too. They'd been planning this a long time. That changed things. Once I knew Rachel and Danny had started sneaking around before either of their marriages ended, something flipped in my brain. All the little things that didn't make sense, sudden phone calls she'd take in the garage, Danny, visiting friends, near our town months before his divorce, all of it snapped into place. I wasn't just a fool. I was their backup plan. It got worse. A week later, Rick tossed a brown envelope onto the kitchen table. "This came for you, certified." It was a legal notice. Danny was trying to claim contribution equity in the house. Said he helped fix up the basement, added value to the property. Now he wanted a payout. I stared at the papers. My jaw clenched so tight it hurt. They weren't satisfied stealing my wife. Now they wanted to squeeze money out of me too. Money I earned. A house I paid for. I paid every damn bill while he played handyman for a few weeks and slept with my wife. I didn't call him. I didn't yell. I called a lawyer. My guy, Howard, was old school. Quiet, sharp, and ruthless when he needed to be. "They've got no case," he said. "But if we push back, they'll just drag it out. You want this over quick, or do you want to bury them?" I didn't even blink. Bury them. Howard filed a countersuit. He included text logs from Rachel and Danny's phones, which I backed up from our family plan. We subpoenaed Danny's ex-wife, who happily testified about the overlap. She even sent screenshots of Rachel messaging her during their divorce, pretending to be a concerned friend. It got messy. Fast. Turns out Danny had some unpaid debts. He'd maxed out 2 credit cards while living in my house. Bought furniture with Rachel. Put a down payment on some landscaping gear he never used. Guess who he listed as a co-signer on one of the loans? Me. Forged my signature. Sloppy. That crossed a line. I pressed charges. Suddenly, Danny stopped smiling in court. Rachel stopped showing up. Their lawyers started asking for mediation instead of pushing for a settlement. I said no. I wanted it public. Then, out of nowhere, I got a message from Rachel's sister, Tanya. We hadn't talked in over a year. She said, "I didn't know how deep it went. You deserve better." I replied, "Why are you telling me this now?" She sent me screenshots. More texts. Turns out, Rachel had been trashing me behind my back for years. Making up stories. Telling her family I was cold. Controlling. She'd been laying the groundwork long before Danny moved in. She wanted out. She just didn't have the guts to do it the right way. But here's the twist. Tanya also told me something else. She's pregnant. I stared at my phone. Pregnant. She didn't say whose it was. Didn't have to. I thought I was numb by now. I thought nothing could shock me anymore. But this was a whole new level. Rachel and Danny were having a baby. The guy who once broke my arm in high school because I wouldn't let him cheat on a test. The guy I took in when he had nothing. The guy who thanked me by sleeping with my wife in my own basement. Now he was playing house. With my wife. With my money. With a kid on the way. And he thought I was finished. He was wrong. After I found out Rachel was pregnant, something in me went cold. It wasn't just anger anymore. It was clarity. I stopped trying to explain anything to anyone. I stopped hoping for apologies or closure. I didn't want revenge that would blow up fast and fade. I wanted something slow. Lasting. Something that would rot in their lives the way they'd infected mine. My lawyer kept digging. Turns out Rachel and Danny had used my identity to open another line of credit. Furniture, appliances, even a weekend getaway to the coast. All while I was still in the house. Howard smiled when he saw the receipts. We've got them by the throat now. The judge agreed. Danny's fraud charges stuck. Rachel tried to claim she didn't know, but her text said otherwise. She was listed on the purchase orders. She signed the receipts. She was in it up to her neck. Danny was sentenced to 6 months of house arrest and fined thousands. The court put a lien on their home. My home. The one I left behind without a fight. They had to refinance it to pay the penalties. Interest rates had jumped since then. They could barely afford it. But I wasn't done. I reached out to Danny's old employer. Quiet conversation. I didn't lie, I just shared court records. Fraud. Identity theft. Made sure they understood who was working for them. They fired him 2 days later. Rachel had to go back to working full-time at the dental office she hated. She was 6 months pregnant by then. I heard from Tanya that the stress was getting to her. That Danny was getting moody. That he yelled a lot. The same guy who used to laugh in my kitchen like he owned the place. Now he was broke. Unemployed. Trapped. Tanya told me they were fighting all the time. That Rachel accused him of ruining her life. Said she should have just left me clean and started over like a decent person. Funny coming from her. They couldn't sell the house. Not with the lien. And they couldn't keep up with the payments. 2 months later, it went into pre-foreclosure. I bought it. Not under my name. I used to trust. Through Howard. I didn't move back in. I didn't even visit. I just waited until the final notice went out. Then, through a mutual friend, I made sure Rachel and Danny knew who owned the place now. They moved out in silence. No fight left in them. The baby came that fall. A boy. I saw pictures online. He looked nothing like Danny. Rumors started swirling. Tanya called me again. I shouldn't be telling you this, but Rachel took a paternity test. It wasn't Danny's. I didn't even know what to say. I felt nothing. Just tired. He left her 2 weeks later. Now she's living with her parents, raising a baby alone. Danny moved to Boise. I heard he's sleeping on someone's couch. No job. No friends left. And me? I'm still living with Cooper. Got a new place outside Eugene. Nothing fancy, but peaceful. Quiet. I go fishing on the weekends. I sleep like a rock every night. I still haven't dated again, but I will, eventually. I don't miss them. Not even a little. I don't regret helping Danny when he was down. I don't regret loving Rachel. I made my mistakes. Trusted the wrong people. Stayed too quiet for too long. But in the end, I took back everything they tried to steal from me. My name. My pride. My peace. They wanted to destroy me. Instead, they destroyed each other. And I never lifted a finger.